flattened down though. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Wild Earth and your live safari for the afternoon. Behind the camera we have Scott. In the control room we have Nikki and Eugene and Peter, and Brent and Andrew are on the other vehicle, searching the plains of Africa for the delights and game that we will hopefully be able to delight you with for the rest of the afternoon. I find myself in the middle of a fairly dense thicket here looking for Shadow's cub, who I believe we started to call Sindile. And he was seen around here this morning by Scott and me, and also by a few of the other game drives. And our plan this afternoon is to try and find him somewhere here. His mother left him and we followed her for an extended period, and no one came back into this area. So our plan is to, while she's off hunting, try and find him in this area. At the moment I can hear a buffalo just off to my left-hand side, so I'm not going to go wandering off again, I don't think. It's not generally a great idea to give them a fright in the middle of the bush. He's an old bull who's being left off the herd, and so he'll probably be a little cantankerous, as is their wont. So we're going to drive around here and see if we can't pick up some tracks or signs of Sindile, and we'll keep you posted as we go along. Please remember that any questions or comments or desires that you might have, please convey to us via the Twitter handle, hashtag Safari Live, or questions@WildEarthTV. Our wish, or your wish, is our command as it goes, within reason, of course. We cannot guarantee tigers, we cannot guarantee polar bears, or in fact any kind of bear. So on we go. We're going to bumble through this fairly thick bush for the next little while and see if we can't pick up Sindile. There has been a herd of buffalo that's moved through here, and so he may have been chased off a little bit further than where he'd have wanted to go. He may be in a tree having escaped them, but more than likely he's lying in some deep shade or perhaps on a termite mound, just keeping an eye out for possible threats. All right, on we go. I seem to have lost my hearing device. There we go. Now you can talk to me to your heart's content, and I will attempt to answer any questions you have or adhere to any comments. And for those of you who are a little bit more weather conscious, you will see we have clear blue skies, typical of this time of the year for us. It's 26 degrees Celsius, and that's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit for those who still use the metric or the imperial system. I suspect that he has probably headed down towards the drainage line where there was more cover, because you can see, well, maybe you can't, but you might be able to see the grass has been flattened a bit by a big herd of buffalo. There were probably about 100 to 150 animals there. The trick in this thick bush is to not lose your cameraman on the end of a knobthorn or buffalo thorn branch. So far I've done okay. I really don't want to lose Scott because, well, he's a more substantial fellow than me. I don't want him chasing me.
James, if you just unplug your earpiece, I can fix it for you quickly. It's caught. There we go.
Give it a march. Teamwork. A great example as we drive through here, you can see the Combretum trees, which are the most common trees around here, are just turning yellow with the beginning or the onset of winter. And some of the trees have already lost all their leaves, like the marulas. There's one there. You can see. Just going to head a little bit down towards this drainage line and see if we can't see into the deep shade there. This young leopard doesn't seem to be a huge fan of tree climbing. I've yet to see him in a tree, although I'm sure some of you have. Sure, bud. What we're going to do now is cross over to Brent. As you know, he was following the lions this morning. I'm not sure where he is now, if he's managed to find them, but let's just go and find out, and then when we cross back to me, we'll have a bit of a clearer picture as to where we're going. See you just now.
Welcome on the sunset safari, everyone. My name's Brent. Andrew's on camera with me today, and I'm sure James has done the rest of the introductions. As James might have informed you, we are out searching for lions, and all we've managed to find is a fork-tailed drongo. Quite an interesting little bird. Very aggressive. They chase predators, especially bird predators around that come into their territory. Oh, Andrew, did you hear that? It sounds like there's something just over my shoulder. And yes, we have been very lucky. We have managed to find the NKuhuma pride. They haven't moved very far from where we left them this morning. I was a bit worried because it's been quite a cool day, and there were buffalo close by that they might have moved during the day, but they haven't moved very far, maybe about 20 meters. So we are with them and that big pile of lions, and they don't look like they're going to be moving too soon. For those of you who are new, we are on a live African safari in Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands of South Africa. We're part of the Greater Kruger National Park, so there's about a 5 million acre area that's set aside to wildlife. Just make sure nothing sneaks up behind me. Only joking. But we are also interactive, so not only are you seeing these lions at the same time as us, you are able to ask us questions about what we are seeing out in the bush. You can do that by using the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email us on questions@WildEarthTV. So we are definitely going to stay around with these lions this afternoon. They are quite hungry, and they were showing interest in different things this morning while we were following them on the sunrise safari, and it's a possibility they are hungry enough that they might start moving a little bit earlier than they would normally. It has been a warm winter's day, but still cool compared to the summer, so there is a possibility they might start moving earlier today. But we're very happy that we've been able to find them, and they haven't moved too far. So all 8 members of the pride are here at the moment, the majority being in this cluster of lions lying right next to us. there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, how many there? 6 in this little cluster, and 2 lying off in the background. You can see one with her head up doing a bit of grooming, and another who is a very flat cat to the left of that. So what they've done and would have done with the shade is they would have constantly moved during the day to follow the shade as it moved around the bush, and as you can see, the sun is starting to catch up with them again, so that could incite them to move, or just move a meter or two and flop down in the shade again. We're just going to move the vehicle slightly around to give you guys a bit of a different angle. As you can see, the lions really take almost zero notice of the vehicle. Most of these lions will have grown up with cars from when they were cubs, so although we are theoretically interfering, you can see a little bit of a fight as I drove over a branch there, but they didn't get up, run away or move at all. And also with our vehicles, we've got that big or long aerial antenna that's behind us, and sometimes they tend to watch it, and that's what's sending the signal out to you guys all over the world. So they do sometimes get a bit confused by this long pole coming out of the back of an open vehicle, but as you can see now, they've gone pretty much back to the way they were. Oh, isn't that interesting? Definitely not from them, but just off to the left of this line is closest to us, Andrew. I'm pretty sure that's not fresh, but there is a male impala skull. Very difficult to say what that was from, but it is quite old. But they are lying. Oh, sorry, I just heard something in the distance there. Sounded like elephants, but very far away. Copy, thanks very much. So I just got a message from Scott and James, which could be quite exciting. That big herd of buffalo that was seen this morning has crossed. It crossed out of our area, but it has now crossed back into our area. Probably about, as the crow flies, about 2.5, 3 kilometers from here. But a big herd of buffalo can make quite a lot of noise, and if these guys hear that, there's a very good chance they might head in that direction. So that's quite exciting news. Also, apart from that, we're not very far from the Djuma Dam Cam, and there are almost certainly some animals around there, and it'll be interesting to see whether they head down towards that as it gets a bit cooler for a drink. There are some dams to the north of us, but I think the Djuma Dam is the closest permanent water. Now that doesn't look, that's quite a sight. I mean, fast asleep, legs out to the sky, they look very, very comfortable. And there we go, Andrew's got a nice close up on a paw there, and you'll notice you can't see any claws. Let's go to that male's paw that's up in the air, or that one, that's good. Any of those that are up in the air, there we go. Let's zoom in on there. So you'll notice that you can't see any claws visible. And as with most cats, the claws are retractable, and they were only sort of taken out when need be, and that is an adaptation of cats to help ease the wear and tear on those claws. What I do, I've got quite an interesting image that I'm just going to find in my book here quickly for you, that will show you how a lion's claw works. So it's obviously not only lions, it's all the cats. So there we go. Now you see, this is how the claw mechanisms work. When they are retracted, there is a little ligament here, and you can see how it folds in like that, and that little ligament becomes loose, so like a spring, and the claw retracts in. When the ligament is extended and tightened, you can see how it flicks out, sort of. So it goes from that to almost like that. So it's like straightening your finger. You can see the bend in the bone there, in the phalanges bones, in what would be the same similar to our finger bones. And when that ligament straightens, you can see and flex, that whole shape of the paw even changes. You see how you've got the front pad, or the toe pad there, and then the main part of the back pad, and that's how we normally see the tracks when we're following them. But when they're extended, I mean, look at that massive gap, and that's where that ligament is in there, and that extends, so you can even see how the shape of a track would change when the lion's claws are extended. And this would only be when they were sort of either fighting or in full speed after a prey animal. But nice little visual there to give you a better idea of how a lion's claws work. And we are, as you can see, I think quite carefully, especially around that male, he is being plagued by lots of flies, and we are also being plagued by the same very flies. And if you look at a lion's ear, especially an older lion, you have a look how tattered the ear can become, and that is from those flies constantly biting the ear. You can see how he keeps flicking the ear to try to keep those flies off his ear. All the ears flicking. For the old viewers, I'm sure you've heard me mention, when we are looking for lions in the middle of the bush, especially when we're tracking, quite often we are looking for them while they're sleeping, and this is how they would sleep. So the things we're looking for, as you can see on that lioness lying on her back, a much paler color on her belly, and in the bush that's something that would stick out to it once your eyes are used to that. And also that constant ear flicking is another thing we'd be looking for if we were walking and tracking them on foot. And then also, they're not doing it so much at the moment, but you do occasionally get a tail flick, and those are some of the very important things you look for when you're tracking on foot or walking lions on foot. Hi Sarah, welcome on the Sunset Safari. Sarah would like to know, what age does a lion's nose go from pink to black? Well, sorry, that is quite an interesting question, and there's been quite a lot of debate over that. I don't know if we can get a close-up on that young male's nose there, please, Andrew. We might have to move the vehicle a little bit. Can't really see from here. So I have seen adult male lions 7-8 years old that still have pink noses, and so I think it's not always the case that they change, but generally if it does change, it's going to be between the sort of 2 and 3 year old mark. But I have seen complete adult male and female lions that do still have pink noses or pink patches on their nose. I would not say it's a definite way to... Ah, there we go. And which one is that? That looks like one of the young females. Yeah, one of the young females who's probably just about a year and 2 or 3 months now, and you notice still very much a pink nose. But as I said, I have seen adults with pink noses as well. So it's not a hard and fast rule when it comes to aging the cats using a nose. From my understanding, the most accurate way to age lions unfortunately requires them to be darted, and it's off the teeth and the gums, and that is the most accurate way to age lions. Also, there's quite a lot of chat about in how that sometimes the cub spots that quite a lot of lions have. But if we go to this lioness closest to us here, please, and you look on her back leg. Now this is a female who is over 6 years old, and if you look carefully there's still cub spots, and if you go down towards her front right shoulder, they're even more visible. You can see those remnant spots there, and again, it depends on the individual. Some of them will lose it completely, others will hold onto it until they're well over 10 years old. So it is difficult. The one thing you can say with lions is it's an adult and a sub-adult. Because, and only once particularly with lionesses, if they are sort of in their prime, between sort of 5 and 10 years old, to tell the difference between a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old lion is very difficult unless you have spent your whole watching that lion for its whole life. And even then, I would say it is an incredibly difficult thing. I've spent time with researchers who have spent years and years with lions and will still have to go back to their ID cards and whatnot to identify different individuals that they've been seeing on a daily basis for 5 or 6 years. So very interesting. Obviously sometimes certain animals will get a very distinct scar or tear in the ear or missing the tip to the tail, and that does make it a lot easier. I know apparently the most accurate way that scientists use to identify lions during research projects can only be seen when the lion's mouth's open or when they yawn, and there's sort of black blotches that almost look like tattoos on the gums, and those are used as an ID point by quite a few scientists, and apparently that is the most accurate and has the most sort of, in all lions it is the most diverse and most different. Hi, Oki from Oklahoma, who is contacting us via Twitter this Sunset Safari. Oki would like to know how old are the lions in this pride, more or less, and how long does a lion live on average? Well, Oki, as far as I know from the information I've gathered from the other guides, we can go have a look at the lions. It's probably much nicer to explain that way. In total there are 8 lions in this pride. There are 2 sub-adult females who are probably between a year and 2 and a year and 4 months. I'm not 100% sure on that. And then there's 1 young male, and that would leave, my maths is horrific, 5. Thank you, Andrew. 5 adult females, ranging from about 6 years old to around 10 years old, and that's the information I've got from the other guides. As I said, now to tell the difference between the 10-year-old and the 6-year-old, near impossible. They're all big adult lionesses. The young male, he's a bit easier. He's closing on about 3 years old now. He's going to be pushed out of the pride quite shortly. And the reason that happens, why or possibly his father's, it's very difficult to say that for sure, that the dominant coalition of Matimba lions is his father. Sorry guys, I just got to answer the radio quickly and I'll be back with you. For those of you who might be new, the radio is used between all the different game drive vehicles that are out in this area, and that's to make sure we can communicate with each other and increase the chances of finding animals. And we all basically work as a very big team to bring the best game experience possible for you guys out there who are sitting on the back of Wendy this afternoon, and obviously for the commercial operators who have guests staying in their lodges. And copy, NKuhuma are still lying up, same position off the link road from Gallagher shortcut to Buffalo's Hook cut line.
Copy, thanks.
Okay, so I keep back to your question, how long do lions live for? Oh, there's a bit of a stretch there. Lionesses generally will live up to about 15 in the wild, but generally a few years below that. Male lions, anything over 10, 11 years old is sort of the end of a male lion's prime. Again, they can live longer, but they're generally killed by competing males coming in to take over their territories. In captivity, I know lions can live over 20 years, but in the wild, it's very seldom to find a lion that's over 15 years old. Lionesses generally live a little bit longer than males, because once the new males come in, they want to mate with the lionesses and sire the next generation. But the males, obviously, once they have passed their prime and they've been pushed out of their territory by new lions coming in, that is sort of a downward spiral, because pretty much everywhere around there's going to be other lions holding territory, so they will possibly sometimes live in between and on the edges of territories and on the peripheries of territories for a while. They either die from wounds sustained by fighting, or actually get killed in the fights themselves. Hi, Donna from South Carolina. Welcome on the Sunset Safari, Donna. Donna would like to know whether these cats have eaten recently, or is it just hot, the panting. We're going to go back and have a look at the lions now. If you have a look at the stomachs, they're not actually breathing that heavily, Donna. They have eaten, but probably not in the last 2 days. They're not starving, but they definitely could do with a meal. I mean, if they had eaten very recently, you would see that they would be panting much heavier and their stomachs would be going constantly, and that digestive processes can cause quite a lot of heat. They are unable to sweat like us, so they cool down by breathing heavily and bringing air over their tongue where there's a lot of capillaries or blood vessels, and that air cools down those blood vessels on their tongue and their mouth, the same as a domestic dog or cat would do. Hi, Jimmerlin from Oklahoma. Welcome on the Sunset Safari, Jimmerlin. Jimmerlin would like to know how many cubs a lioness will have at the same time. Jimmerlin, normally the maximum is 3. I'm sure there has been recorded cases of more, but the most I've ever seen in the wild is 3. But I think there is a possibility that there have been a few more. I'll just double check on that for you. Or if you guys out there, maybe you can have a look, see if you can find on the internet, because you have access to that. I unfortunately, while sitting next to lions, do not. Well, actually, fortunately for me. But could you please see if you can find what is the most recorded lion cubs born to a single female? And once you get that answer, you can send it through to me to questions@WildEarthTV, or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. And at the same time, I'll see what my Mammal Bible, big heavy book, says about that as well, and we can then compare, see what my book says compared to what you guys can find out on the internet. So I just had a feedback that you guys enjoyed the little lecture on cat claws, and there's a bit of a discussion going on, started by Ginny, to whether there is a cat that has non-retractable claws. And if you give me a second, there is a possibility there is definitely a cat that has non-retractable claws, and it is the cheetah. And quite interestingly, if we look at, let's have a look first at, what doesn't matter, there's a spoor of a leopard there, and you see the 3 lobes at the back and no claws showing. And then if we go through to the cheetah and we have a look at a cheetah's tracks, you can see that there are definitely claws showing. Now, a cheetah, they have semi-retractable claws, so not fully retractable. They still do move a little bit in and out, but on their tracks you will almost always see those claws. So that is the cat that has semi-retractable claws, and that is a special adaptation for the high speeds the cheetah reach, and they have to keep that elongated. Also, for an animal, just to roll over, for an animal of their size, they've got incredibly large feet. So a cheetah track is very big, even though the animal is very slight, and that's again another adaptation. They need sort of a lot more sort of foot while they're hitting those very high speeds, even though they barely touch the ground on that. Hi, Swoop. Swoop is saying that her cat, or his cat, sorry, I'm not sure, Swoop, whether you're a man or a woman there, but Swoop says their cat has 6 toes on each foot, and would like to know whether the lion does as well. As far as I know, a lion's only got 5, including the dew claw. So 4 in the front, and then the dew claw at the back. We might be able to see a dew claw on the front foot of one of these lions, but they're all lying in a position. We're just trying to have a look. We can't really see it now, but there is a dew claw on the back of that. So as far as I am aware, they only have 5. I'm not sure whether the smaller cats are supposed to have 6 or 5. I thought it was 5, but I'm not 100% sure. Swoop, maybe you've got a very rare cat. So I'm just giving you 1 second. I'm just having a look at something in the book here quickly. about how many. There we go. How many litters, well, the largest litter recorded is. So I'll wait till we get a few answers from you guys to see. And I've got my highest record out of my mammal Bible. See if that coincides with what you guys can find out there on the internet. But I would definitely say on average the number of cubs is 3 or near 3, depending on the area as well. Hi Lucy, welcome on the Sunset Safari. Lucy would like to know, do the lions feel more secure when they are touching each other when they're sleeping? Lucy, yes they do, and this is a very important part of a social animal's behavior. A lot of that touching is to reaffirm the bonds between the pride, and obviously if the pride has strong bonds, it's got a better chance of being a successful pride. And a lot of that is due to the fact with lions, well, let's have a look, there's not much going on. That is to do with the fact that the lions are, when they feed, they fight and they scratch and they bite and they really beat each other up. And often a lot of the scars and cuts and stuff you'll see on a lion, or if it's got a swollen eye, is all from feeding. So they fight over the food. So after that, it's very important for them to be a very close-knit pride, and a lot of touching and allo grooming, which is grooming each other to reaffirm those social bonds between the pride. So guys, while we're sitting here with these very flat cats, we're going to cross across to James and Scott, see what they've been up to. I know they are definitely on the trail of something, and we'll get back to that. How big can a lioness's litter be when we come back, because we're not going anywhere, just in case these cats get up and start moving. So we'll see you a little bit later, and have fun with Scott and James.
Welcome back to Jiga, everyone. We have thus far failed in our quest to find the leopard, but what we have found instead, for your edification and entertainment, is a tree squirrel perched in the end of a knobthorn tree, where the thorns would tear the hands of you or I or any other mortal to pieces, and that little squirrel has managed to climb all the way to the top. And the reason we arrested our movement here was because the squirrel was alarm calling at something down in the ground. We're not sure what it was. We couldn't see anything. There's a little bit of movement in the bush off to the right-hand side of where you can see that little rodent. And we'll go and have a look there now. But we've sort of given up on chasing Sindile for now, mainly because he is probably in some quite thick bush, and apart from the fact that we would damage the vehicle, you'll probably find that we'll damage too much of the bush looking for him. We don't mind pushing over the odd tree if we are looking for or following an animal. The bush tends to recover very quickly, and studies have shown in areas where there isn't off-road driving that our machinations and our movements in the off-road here have very little effect on the actual ecology of an area. That said, we don't want to bash trees over unnecessarily, so we're going to wait for a little while and then see if we can't pick up some further tracks on the roads, and we'll just potter around here. I'm just going to go and look at that noise there and find out what it is. It probably is just a bunch of little francolins knocking about, fossicking for food. Franklin canned Fossick for food or not. That's what my mother always accused me of doing in the fridge. An impala crossing the road. Now what we've got here is a little bird party. Scott, I don't know if you can just focus on down on that fallen, so you can breach tree. And we've got a whole lot of birds there. I'll try and run through some of them now. There were some drongos, fork-tailed drongos. Looks like some arrow-marked babblers. Yeah, I'm sure you're not getting a great picture of them at the moment, but you can see the movement there. And knocking about on the ground like those birds are doing sounds remarkably like the footfall of a gentle leopard wandering through the area. Yep, some arrow-marked babblers. And that's one there in picture, I think. So, before you all fall asleep, we're going to reverse out of here, back down the road, and see if we can't pick up tracks of Shadow. This was the road that we saw her sort of crossing before we left her this morning, and we'll see if she isn't still around there. Otherwise, we will find something else magnificent and interesting to tell you.
Afternoon, mobile stations. Any updates?
An impala on the road there.
And Scott is following on the gondola larger that have crossed into where they're following up in the structure of the alley. Where about those tracks coming in?
Tracks of the buffalo herd seem to cross then into some meat at One-Eye Pan Road.
Okay, thank you.
Rather a pleasant little impala sighting here. I'm just going to lower my voice a bit. They tend to be a little put off by our voices. This is a fantastic impala sighting. Whole bevy. Now this would be a nursery herd, and unfortunately I don't know if you can see the male there. He's there. Oh, just to my right. Yeah, there we go. Hold on, Scott. He's knocking about underneath that knobthorn tree, and he is in fact wasting his time. In the Kruger Park, the male peaking, or the peak breeding period, is the dark phase of the moon in May, and we've well past that now. We're into June tomorrow, and the moon is waxing at about 3/4 at the moment, and so it's more than likely that most of these females are in fact pregnant already. So he is either looking after his herd out of a sense of loyalty, but more than likely he's not quite au fait with the breeding patterns of the ewes here. So as May has progressed, we've noticed the herds. There we go. We've noticed the herds, the male herds the bachelor herd starting to sort of conglomerate again slowly, and the sort of grunting and roaring that the male impala make has become sort of progressively less. That's not to say that all the ewes are pregnant yet, but it's quite likely that they are. I'm just going to sneak a little bit forward. I tend to pass up the impala a little too often, I think. Especially a magnificent herd like this. thank you very much for your question and welcome to the afternoon drive. I think you, from what I understand, you're sitting in Louisville, Kentucky. Welcome from Kentucky. It's a slightly different environment to what you're used to. You want to know if Karula, being an 11-year-old leopard, is in trouble, I think was your word, because she's getting on a bit and may lose her territory. I would say at 11 she's pretty much okay for now. At 13 she's going to start losing condition quite fast, and then she would be sort of under more threat, and would probably have to then keep a lower profile and could well be sort of usurped from her territory. Females often set up territories near their mothers, or their daughters therefore near their mothers, and so it's unlikely that so for a male, for example, the takeover of a territory is likely to be a far more aggressive affair, because normally males will move away from their natal territories. So for Karula, you might find that the core of her territory just becomes a lot smaller as her daughters around her expand their own territories. But it's difficult to say. But I'd say she's probably got another 2 years of territory of a similar size. In this area, they tend to be about 150 hectares or 15 square kilometers. And that will probably start to shrink slowly now. See there, a lovely example of an impala's ability to browse, which sort of most of the other grazing antelope can't. They will generally pick grass if they can, but in the winter months like this, they will find leaves to browse. Sneak a little bit forward. Scott, I don't know if you can get that drongo lurking on the dicrostacus bush there. Shot. Well done. So that's the fork-tailed drongo. We get 2 drongos in this area, or in South Africa, and the other is the square-tailed one, but you can see this one's got a very distinct forked tail. And the drongos and starlings and other insect-eating birds love to follow herds of impala because of the invertebrates that they kick out of the ground, especially in winter when there's not so many flying insects and things. They like to follow the herds where they can pick up the odd larva or fly or beetle that gets disturbed by the hooves of this herd of impala. You can see already that the male is relaxing a bit. He is still marking territory. You saw that rubbing his orbital gland there on a bush and keeping a territory, but you will find that he will start to relax and his testosterone levels will start to drop now that the dark phase of the moon in May is over and the female's estrus periods are coming to an end.
You stop behind the bush.
Scott started laughing. I thought maybe it was something I'd said. No, it was his artistic shot that he'd set up that was foiled by an antelope. Ginny on Twitter, thank you for making use of the Twitterverse. I like to use the word Twitterverse, I'm not sure why. You want to know if they give birth now, at least not give birth now, if they conceive now, when will they give birth? The gestation period is about 6.5 months, and what they try and do, what they've evolved to do over time, is to flood the market with youngsters as the first rains come. And normally we tend to think of the first rains as coming end of September or even October, but normally they actually come around the end of November or middle of November. So the first rains come, there's a flush of beautiful green fresh grass, and then they will drop their lambs, and they all drop this herd will probably, the females that are pregnant will drop their lambs most of them within a week, and the rest probably within 2 weeks of that. So there's an enormous peak in birthing period, and they flood the market with little babies, many of whom sadly sadly for them, happily for the predators, will not make it through the first year, about 50% probably. But the rest, because they flood the market, the rest have a very good chance of surviving. As I mentioned yesterday, they're in and around what we call a sodic area, where the soils are quite sodium rich. I tried some myself last night. Tastes pretty much like ordinary soil to me, but the grasses that grow in these sodic areas will be fairly nutritious. I'm not sure if Scott will be able to catch this, but if he zooms out, you'll be able to see on the sand here, just next to the vehicle and probably a little bit in front of the Impala, the herd of buffalo that we were hoping to find again this afternoon, it would seem has gone up to a dam, or big water hole just to the north of us, drank their fill, had a swim, probably a wallow in the mud, shot the breeze with about the day's news, and then turned around and unfortunately headed across the boundary onto another reserve where we are unable to follow. Such are the property laws of man, and we're going to carry on now and see if we can't find some tracks of the leopard. This is round about where we saw Shadow this morning, in the thick bush there. Around that, there's a big greenish tree over there that you can see. It was around there that we left her this morning. It's like a weeping boerbean. Yeah, those buffalo have definitely crossed back over this road. Ever since I've got here, I've been hoping to find a leopard lurking in one of those beautiful brown ivory trees. Thus far, they have failed to please me or acquiesce to my desires. Sorry, that's a scotia tree, I think I said. Ask a fascinating question. You want to know if the dark stripe underneath an impala's eyes helps with glare, much like it does with, I'm assuming you're referring to sort of an NFL player who will put black stripe underneath their eyes during a football game. The answer is probably yes. We can't be certain for sure, but they're a diurnal animal. Most of the nocturnal animals, or animals that live in thick bush, have white stripes and we think that's to reflect light into their eyes. So I think that your supposition that the black stripe helps with glare is a very good one. On Twitter from Ohio, another great question. Thank you very much for it. We really do like to interact with you there over the World Wide Web via the satellites and all manner of other technology that my brain is too not nimble enough to comprehend. You want to know, is there only one male to a herd of impala? The answer is, the answer is not yes or no. What the males will try and do, sort of leading up to this period of the mating, is to exclude other males. So the big bull rams will chase off the others, and they will try and monopolize breeding chances. And in that case, you will often see, like we did there, one adult ram, a couple of young rams in that herd, and then a whole lot of ewes. But in the off-season, when the testosterone levels are down and none of the females are in estrus, then you'll find that the rams congregate together in bachelor herds. But what you do find at the sort of intervening period is if you're not a fully grown ram, but you'd still quite like a mating opportunity, what you do is if you hang out on the fringes of the herd, and when the time comes and the ewes become receptive to mating, you'll nip in, mate quickly, and nip out again. It's an extremely speedy process. I've seen it once. It takes roughly, I'd say, 2 to 3 seconds for the mating to begin and end. And so that will happen from time to time. So we're still on the trail, or hopefully on the trail, of trying to find some tracks of Shadow. This is around about where she was. Now, Wendy, in Florida, you have asked a question that I believe has been the subject of which has been the source of some of the greatest mistruths ever spoken by guides to their unsuspecting guests from abroad. And the myth is that an impala can delay its birth and give birth later on than it would. So, for example, if the rains are late, they'll give birth only when they come, so they'll delay birth. The answer is, biologically, that is simply can't be possible, because it would mean that the fetus would either stop growing or become so large that it would then be impossible to be born. And I think the misnomer comes mainly, or the misconception comes mainly, from the fact that there is actually a second impala breeding season. It's a very short one, and it happens in September. And the birth of that little mating season is in February. And what happens then is that sometimes you find, until quite recently, this was fairly poorly understood. So you'll find young impala lurking around in February time, and people will say in a drought year, will say, well, you see, the ewes have held on to their lambs and only dropped them now. They've held them for 4 months. But I mean, biologically, that's impossible. In years that are unfavorable, what I suspect will happen is that the fetus will either be aborted, or there may be a time, up to a certain period, it might be possible for the impala ewe to reabsorb the fetus. But I think after a certain period, and I'm guessing here, but I can't imagine that would be much beyond a month. I think that the abortion is probably the more likely, natural abortion is the more likely outcome of, say, a big drought or something like that. Otherwise, the lambs might be born in such a weakened state that they can't actually keep up with the herd, in which case we wouldn't see them dying. So, in answer to your question, no, impala can't delay their births. I mean, maybe for a week or two. Even that I would be suspicious of. now circumnavigated the entire area where the leopard was seen this morning. We haven't found any tracks coming out. Back to the access and out.
We could take the Powerline Road onto Brereton access.
Yeah, let's do that. Just consulting with Scott, who's been here longer than I have, and therefore has greater knowledge of movements and tracks. And we're going to head on to the major road where we'll find some better soil for tracks, and just check if she didn't come through this area here. Keep looking in the trees. See this area to my left here is filled with what we call silver cluster leaf trees. Very beautiful trees that maintain their leaves for quite a lot of the winter. They have a silver sheen when looked at in the light of the soon-to-be setting African sun, which is what we have behind us now. Tremendous privilege to experience it every afternoon, I must say, and an even greater privilege that we're able to send it over to you. Too good an opportunity to miss here. Sorry, I'm just waiting for a question. Okay. I'm just going to climb this termite mound, mainly because I just want to climb this termite mound. Off to my west, I can see the Drakensberg Mountains. I told you last night that they extend 3,000 kilometers down to the Eastern Cape. That's not in fact true. It's only about 1,000 kilometers. I checked that today. And off to the east, the mad expanse of the Kruger National Park and into the Mozambican coastal plain. As I come down this in an elegant fashion, we get into trouble if we fall off things, you see. There's a big hole here, and this hole, which I'm not going to fall into, was dug by an aardvark. Say that 4 times before you've had your morning coffee. An aardvark is, or aardvark in English, is an ant bear that eats a lot of ants and also termites. And this is obviously a termite mound that I'm standing on. But the problem with these holes, of course, is that they're not only eating burrows, they provide homes for various other creatures once the aardvark has eaten what he's going to eat. And what you'll find that in a hole like this, a warthog might go down there, and what they do is they go in backwards. The whole sounder of them might do that. And when you're walking past, you can get yourself into a bit of trouble, because sometimes they'll come bursting out in a sort of terrified frenzy. And a friend of mine was walking past there once with he had a fellow and his daughter, and it was he, the two guests, and the tracker behind, and the tracker in front. And he went past with his rifle, and the tracker went past the hole, and the father went past the hole, and as the daughter went past, this warthog came out. And she turned, and as the warthog hit her, he hit her sort of between her legs, and she fell onto his back and disappeared all through the bush with this woman riding on her back. And she eventually fell off, and they rushed up, and she was fine, she was okay, she was a little shocked. But they turned around, dusted her off, and there was only Alex, who was my mate, and the father and the daughter left, and they had lost the tracker. And they eventually found him in a state of apoplectic hysterics just next to this thing, because in all his years in the bush, and he'd grown up from age 4 in the bush, he'd never seen anything so funny in all his life. She didn't find it too funny, and there was a bit of a stony silence on the way home, but it all ended okay. So as soon as they do anything, Brent is waiting with them. We'll send you back to him. Turn in here. Sorry, can you try and get this acacia tree? Sorry, then I'm going to go back. On the roots there. I've had a question from Kay, which I'm going to try and answer now. Kay, will you just put the kettle on? I'll be back with you in a second. I just want to quickly show you this tree here. You can see there that it's been pushed over, but how that piece of well, you will see it now. There's a piece of soil of the rootstock that's been pushed over. And I've spoken quite a lot in the last few days about how everything out here has evolved to deal with the various predatory pressure that it feels. Now, the tree that Scott just showed you is in fact the same tree as the one that's been pushed over there. And what it's done is that the roots have simply changed direction and grown down, and the branches, that's not the main trunk is lying on the ground in front of that. And that secondary branch has now become the main trunk, and it's now growing as it sort of it would have normally. Now then, I'm willing to bet, and I don't know this for sure, but I'm willing to bet that there are lots and lots of European trees that or North American trees, or any trees where elephants don't exist, where if you pushed them over, that would be the end of that. But because of the effects of elephants over millions of years in these areas, the trees have evolved incredible adaptations to survive when they're pushed over or ring-barked or whatever else happens to them. Right, Kay, back to your question. You want to know what is the effect on fertilization of buffalo dung on the soil. I'm not going to give you a particularly in-depth answer, but safe to say that buffalo dung on soil, and we have fewer buffalo than we used to in the area, and that's largely because the water is not as concentrated as it used to be. We've got water, like I said the other day, every landowner's pumped his own water hole, and that tends to fragment the herds. And that's definitely resulted in fewer of them coming through here. But the dung of animals, and especially big herds of buffalo, and the effect that their hooves have on the ground is extremely important to the ecology of the area and to the sustainability and health of the grass sward. Right, so I think one of the lions has twitched an ear, which has resulted in my friend Brent going apoplectic with delight. So we're going to cross it to him, and he's going to tell you a bit about what he's seen so far.
Welcome back, guys. There's a bit of grooming and stuff going on, so we're going to definitely focus on the lions. There was a little bit of movement happening. It is getting cooler, so I'm hoping one lioness got up and went for afternoon ablutions. There's a lot more stretching and movement going on around, so what I am hoping is that they might not get moving just yet, but they are in the process of it. See, all this social grooming and touching like that, apart from being a very important part of lion pride dynamics, it's also a very good sign that they might be thinking about moving shortly. Of course, they might just trick us all. There we go. Stretching. I mean, look at those muscles. So probably fine also looking for a spot to do her ablutions or just flop down. But this is how lions wake up. It's a gradual process. It's not an instant up and awake unless something happens to stumble in upon them. It is a gradual process of stretching and grooming and maybe a bit of playing, but there definitely is the potential for movement at the moment. So for those of you who might have just joined in, you are sitting on the back of my safari vehicle on a live safari in Djuma Private Game Reserve in South Africa. We are literally less than 10 feet from a pride of 8 lions that look like they're going to start getting up, stretching, grooming, and hopefully head out hunting. Obviously, not all of them look quite active. Some of them are still very, very much flat cats, but there is a lot more movement than was happening, say, half an hour ago. And as I said, it's a precursor to movement. So it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to move right now, but it is the right time of the afternoon, and the temperature's dropping. So back to that question I posed to you guys about the largest lion litters recorded. We had some very good answers and some really great response from everyone, but the first that came through was Susan and Jilly, who both referred to the same incident of a lioness in Zimbabwe giving birth to 8 in a litter, which is incredible. But can't really take that as it definitely is a world record, but that was to a captive animal, and so not an animal living in the wild. Also, that animal, from what Jilly sent through, had been on birth control, and from what I know with birth control with wild cats or big cats, it apart from it really affecting their estrogen cycles and stuff like that, and can also affect their behavior, it can create some very strange occurrences. So even though it is definitely a world record, and really thanks a lot for that, guys, that is an abnormal thing, and in captivity, so we can't really take into context if we're talking about wild lions. As far as what I could find, the largest was 6, which were born in Kenya, in Nairobi National Park, and that was in the wild. But definitely 8, that's incredible. But as I said, there's some funny things there with birth control and trying to manage an animal's estrogen output, etc. But as far as I know, with a completely untampered situation, 6 in Nairobi National Park in Kenya. But that is still absolutely amazing. And looks like they've tricked me. Got lots of flat cats sleeping next to me. There are still 2 off to the right that are moving from time to time. As you can see, the flies have decided to leave the lions and rather land on me. So if I beat myself, I apologize. Oh, bless you. So, a couple of things. We've got a very, very special fireside chat this evening. We got a really wonderful email from Angie, who's a cancer nurse at the Dayton's Children's Cancer Ward in Ohio, and so we're going to be taking quite a few questions from the kids who are in the ward today, and also tonight's fireside chat will be a special show. A part of that will be a special show just for them. So welcome everyone at Dayton. Thanks for joining us on this Sunset Safari. We're really, really, really happy to have you with us. We couldn't think of a better way to spend our Sunday than with you. And we've got a question from Sammy, who's 11 years old. Sammy would like to know, am I scared, and have I ever petted a lion? Well, Sammy, I'm not scared. I'm in a vehicle, and I'm very lucky. I've grown up in the bush, and I've got a lot of experience in terms of dealing with lions. I've walked into them on foot many times, and I see them quite often. I'm very lucky in what I do that I'm able to spend a lot of time with lions. So no, I'm not scared, but I still have a very, very big respect for lions, and I know where not to cross the boundary, so not to go too close, and on foot not to push them too much. The next question is whether I've petted a lion. It's a difficult one, Sammy. Generally, I would say you shouldn't pet lions, even the cubs and stuff that people have in zoos. What happens is it's a bit of a strange environment where they actually breed the lions just for the petting industry, and then they're sort of discarded afterwards when they get too big to pet. But I have petted a lion at a sanctuary for rescued lions, where I was filming last year. So I have, but generally you must be very careful to go to places that pet lions. A lot of them don't really look after the animals after they're not cubs anymore. So, but yes, I have, and no, I'm not scared. Thank you very much for your question, Sammy. We really do appreciate it. Oh, there's a yawn. Another. Let's see. I'd say the temperature's probably dropped, degrees Celsius, about 3 or 4, maybe even 5 degrees since we first arrived. So, James has found something really, really interesting, so we're going to cross it across to him quickly, and we'll be back just now. So over to James.
very sorry to drag you away from the lions. Oh, but we had a little pearl-spotted owlet. I'm going to do the call and see, sometimes they will come back. It's the most beautiful little owl. I'm going to do the call quickly now and see if we can't either get him to respond or come back, and then we'll send you back to the lions. No luck with that one. I'm going to try it once more and then we'll send you back. No, I've had no luck on Djuma doing that. Like I said before, I've managed to find them or get them to call back a little bar. If you would like to, in fact, let's do that. Yes, that would be great. We're going to give you a little replay quickly of the owl that Scott managed to shoot for us. And you can just have an amazing look at what an incredible bird that is. They don't often sit as confidingly as that.
I'm going to start on you.
So you saw the little pearl spots just down the front of the breast of the bird. And I mean, he's a tiny little thing. He's only about that big. And very aggressive little face. A diurnal owl, so active mainly during the day. And I've seen them catching a woodland kingfisher, which is about the same size, with a nasty beak like that. And that owl will take out a kingfisher like that. So, on we go. I'm not sure what Brent's up to at the moment. We're going to carry on here. We had reports of another herd of buffalo, so not the same one we were trying to find earlier today, which went off the property. We're going to carry on there, and while we're doing that, Brent has got some more lion excitement for you. We're going to cross back to him.
Welcome back, guys. Looks like we've got a bit of movement. Looks like the one lioness has heard something. So all of a sudden, ears are up, and two of the adults have stood up, and they are looking off to the north. And you can see all the heads have popped up all of a sudden. So I'm just trying to listen to hear what they might have heard. They could have smelt something just as easily. Obviously their sense of hearing and sense of smell are far superior to mine. But it is the right time of the day for a bit of movement. They are quite hungry. Ooh. You can see now, next one stood up. She's definitely not just walking. She's definitely showing a bit of intent. And the same with this lioness closest to us. So the two adult lionesses have split. The third adult lioness has just stood up. James coming. So I can hear Inyala alarm calling down towards Vuyatilla camp and the dam. So Zoomies, keep a lookout over there. I can definitely hear Inyala calling in that direction. I'm just going to try to get hold of James quickly, see if they're close by there. James, you copy? Did she lie down or did she disappear behind the bush?
She went behind the bush.
Went behind the bush. I can hear another game drive vehicle, but that's definitely not what they would have been interested in. They're very used to game drive vehicles being around them.
A couple of Gary on the eastern side of Kaimansi, prison house.
Wonder what they've heard. We're just going to stand by here till they start moving. If we're really lucky, something's just going to walk to us. I can just see her ears through the bush. Now imagine that. Imagine you were a buffalo or whatnot, and you were just ambling past. If we look at this thicket right in front of me here, you can just make out the darks of her ears through that. There we go. There she is. I mean, how's that for camouflage? So another two of the adult lionesses are up. The wind is blowing straight into our faces, so it's possible they've smelt something. She's moving across a little bit now. I'm just trying to figure out exactly what's going on before we start moving. Such wonderful afternoon light, and there's a yawn and a scratch. Hi, Hilma from the Netherlands. Hilma is asking questions about the young male lion we've got on camera at the moment. She said she heard he was dead and now she sees him alive and well with the pride. Hilma, I didn't hear he had been killed. I just heard that he had been chased away from the pride by the adult males. He is getting to that age where he might start mating with his mothers and sisters. Or sorry, not sisters, I think it's just his mothers and his aunts. And the reason male lions will chase young male lions away is to stop them mating with their direct relations, even though lions are able to inbreed for a number of generations without any adverse effects on them. It is better that they are moved off. So he'll get to the stage, there's a big yawn. He'll get to the stage now where he's going to be pushed off and he's going to have to fend for himself or join up with other young males in the same position and form a coalition. Okay, we're going to move forward with the lionesses now.